the twin suns of Kuros burned high in the sky, casting long shadows across the stone circle where the Veruun gathered. They were a warrior clan, tall and broad, their skin marked with lines of color that showed family and victories. Their voices echoed through the canyon as they prepared for the ritual duel. Today, an outsider stood among them, a human named Daniel. Daniel had come to Kuros with a small trade group, hoping to form peaceful ties with the Veruun. Yet peace was not given freely in this land. Among the Veruun, respect was not spoken with words, but earned with strength. Outsiders who wished to be heard had to face the clan champion. It was a tradition older than memory. Refusing would mean shame, and no Veruun would ever listen to one who turned away. When Daniel stepped into the circle, the clan laughed. To them, a human was short, thin, and weak compared to their people. The Veruun lived in a harsh land, where storms tore the earth and predators stalked the night. Strength was survival, and survival was honor. What chance did this human have against their champion? Myra, the chosen warrior of the clan, entered the circle opposite him. She was tall, her braided hair falling like a dark rope over her shoulder, her arms marked with bright blue streaks of paint. In her hand she carried the clan's pride, a rune blade passed down through generations. The sword's edges shimmered faintly, symbols carved deep into its surface. It was not only a weapon but also a sign of the ancestors' favor. The Veruun roared approval as Myra raised the blade high. Daniel stood quietly, his simple steel sword gripped in both hands. He had no runes, no glowing weapon, no chance of support. Only the quiet beat of his own heart. An elder raised his hand. His voice carried across the circle. The duel begins. May the ancestors guide the strong. The air shifted. Myra wasted no time. She lunged forward, her blade flashing down with the weight of iron and tradition. Daniel sidestepped, the strike cutting stone where he had stood a moment before. The crowd cheered, expecting the human to fall within moments. But Daniel did not fall. He moved with steady focus, blocking with his smaller blade, twisting his body out of reach when he could not match her strength. Each time Myra pressed forward, he gave ground, but he did not collapse. His eyes stayed locked on her movements, reading her speed, her rhythm, her style. The Veruun began to murmur among themselves. Few outsiders had ever lasted more than a single strike. Yet this human had already survived 3, then 5. Myra narrowed her eyes. She had not expected a true fight, but Daniel's persistence demanded her respect. She shifted her stance, no longer holding back. Her blade swept in a wide arc, the runes glimmering faintly as it sliced through the air. Daniel ducked low, barely avoiding the strike, then countered with a thrust. Myra deflected it with ease, sparks leaping where their swords met. His arms shook with the force of her strength, yet he did not release his grip. The circle rang with the clash of metal. Each impact echoed like thunder across the stones. Daniel's breaths came heavy, but his eyes never wavered. The Veruun warriors leaned forward, their voices dropping into silence. This was no longer entertainment. It was becoming a test none had expected. Then Myra struck true. Her blade cut across Daniel's arm, not deep, but enough to draw blood. The crowd shouted in triumph, certain the fight was over. But something strange happened. The runes on Myra's blade flared. Blue light burst along the sword, shining brighter than any had seen before. The glow ran across the etched symbols, racing from hilt to tip until the whole weapon burned with fire-like brilliance. Gasps swept the clan. That was not supposed to happen. The runes were tied to the blood of the Veruun. They had never responded to the touch of another species. Yet here, before their eyes, a human's blood had awakened the blade. Daniel staggered back, clutching his arm, confusion flashing in his eyes. He did not know what the light meant, but the Veruan knew. They stared in shock, voices rising in disbelief. Myra herself froze, her grip tightening on the hilt. She had wielded this blade many times, but never had it shone so fiercely. Daniel breathed hard, raising his sword again. He would not give up. If anything, the strange flare only made him stand taller. His chest rose, his eyes sharpened, and he planted his feet firm on the stone. The duel was far from over. But the air around the circle had changed. No one saw a weak outsider now. They saw a human who had awakened something no Veruan warrior ever had. The elder rose to his feet, eyes wide. Whispers spread like fire among the clan. The duel was no longer just a contest. It had become a sign, a message from the ancestors, and no one knew what it would mean. The glow of Myra's rune blade lit the stone circle like a captured star. The blue fire ran across the markings, pulsing with Daniel's heartbeat as if the weapon itself had chosen him. Every Veruan warrior stood frozen. The air was thick with disbelief. Never before had their ancestral blade answered to anyone outside their blood. Myra herself felt her arm tremble. She was no stranger to duels. She had fought raiders, beasts, even other champions, but never had her weapon reacted this way. Her eyes flicked to Daniel. He stood with his jaw set, his arm bleeding, his sword steady. He did not look like a conqueror or a chosen savior. He looked like a man simply refusing to bow. That truth unsettled her more than the runes. The elder's voice broke the silence. Continue. The duel was not over. Myra inhaled deeply and stepped forward. If the runes had chosen to burn for a human, she needed to test if it was true or just a passing spark. She swung her blade, the blue fire trailing like lightning in the air. Daniel met the strike with both hands on his steel sword. The clash rang loud, and to everyone's shock, he did not fall. The glow surged brighter, flooding down into his arms as if lending him strength. He held Myra's strike and pushed back, forcing her to step away. The Veruan shouted in disbelief. The outsiders they mocked as fragile and weak were not supposed to resist their champion. Yet here was Daniel, a human, standing his ground against the flame of the ancestors. Myra circled him now, her eyes narrowing. She could not deny what she had seen. His movements were sharper, more precise, as if the blade's energy was flowing into him. She lunged again, testing his defense. Their blades met in a storm of sparks, and again the runes flared as if delighted by the clash. Daniel's arms ached, but he felt something he could not explain. The pain from his cut faded, replaced by warmth that spread through his chest and limbs. Each time Myra struck, his body responded faster, guided by instinct and will. He did not think of winning or losing. He thought only of surviving, of proving that he did not stand here to be broken. The Veruan clan fell into silence. They watched every move, every swing, their disbelief turning into unease. Whispers ran through the crowd. Some muttered that this was blasphemy, that no outsider could carry the fire of their ancestors. Others whispered the opposite, that this was a sign long foretold. Myra pressed harder. She wanted to know if Daniel's strength was his own or if the runes truly accepted him. Her strikes grew faster, the blade whistling with each arc. Daniel stumbled, barely catching a heavy swing that rattled his arms. Yet every time he should have fallen, the glow surged, holding him up. His eyes burned with determination. "You fight with honor," Myra said between strikes, her voice low enough that only he could hear. "But the runes burn for you." "Why?" Daniel gritted his teeth, blocking another slash. "I don't know. I didn't ask for it. I just won't give up." His words struck her harder than his blade. The Veruan believed strength came from bloodlines and tradition. Yet here was a human claiming nothing but stubborn will. The runes seemed to agree, glowing brighter with every heartbeat. At last Myra swung in a sweeping arc, her blade catching Daniel's side. The cut was shallow, but enough to draw fresh blood. The fire along her sword roared, flaring like a beacon. The crowd gasped and staggered back, shielding their eyes from the blaze. Daniel staggered too, but he did not fall. His body felt aflame, not with pain but with energy. He stepped forward instead of retreating. His steel sword caught the light of the runes, shining brighter than dull iron should. For a heartbeat, it looked as though his simple weapon shared the same fire. Myra froze. She had tested him, pushed him, cut him again, and yet the runes only burned brighter. The truth was undeniable now. Her blade, her clan's sacred heirloom, had accepted the human. The elder's staff struck the ground. Enough. The word carried weight, and both fighters lowered their blades. Daniel breathed hard, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion, while Myra stood tall, her expression troubled. Around them, the Veruan clan shifted uneasily, torn between disbelief and awe. Daniel wiped the sweat from his brow. He did not raise his sword in triumph, nor did he taunt his opponent. He simply stood there, bloodied but unbroken. That alone spoke louder than any boast. The elder stepped forward, his face pale under the glow. He looked from Myra to Daniel, then to the blazing sword still in her hands. His voice shook when he spoke. "The runes have spoken. The ancestors bear witness. This duel is no longer about strength alone. It is about destiny." The Veruan lowered their heads, uncertain how to react. Myra herself dropped to one knee, lowering the glowing blade before Daniel. "The fire has chosen you," she said, her voice calm but heavy with meaning. "You may not seek it, human, but the clan cannot deny it." Daniel stared down at her, bewildered. He had not come to claim a clan or to be chosen by ancient fire. He had come to seek respect, nothing more. But as the runes burned brighter still, he understood that his path had already changed. The duel was not just a test now. It had become the beginning of something far greater, and the Veruan knew it as much as he did. The glow of the rune blade did not fade. Even after the elder ended the duel, the fire still pulsed along the carved symbols, alive with energy that no one could explain. The Veruan warriors kept their distance, their voices low, their eyes fixed on Daniel as if he were no longer just a man but something more. Daniel felt the weight of their stares. His side ached from the cut, his arm throbbed where the blade had first struck, yet strength filled him instead of weakness. It was as if the fire from the runes had entered his veins, steadying his steps and clearing his mind. He looked at his own hands, half expecting to see them glowing as well. Myra stood before him, the blade lowered but still blazing. Her expression held no mockery now. There was respect, yes, but also confusion and something close to fear. She had grown up believing the blade would only ever answer to her people. Yet here it was, burning brighter for an outsider than it ever had for her. The elder raised his staff and spoke, his voice echoing through the canyon. "The ancestors have chosen to reveal their will. The runes have awakened for the blood of a human. This cannot be denied. A murmur rippled through the gathered warriors. Some bowed their heads in reverence, accepting the elder's words. Others clenched their fists, refusing to believe. To them, the idea that a human could stir the fire of their ancestors was an insult, a wound to their pride. One of the younger warriors stepped forward, his voice sharp. "This is a trick. The human carries hidden power. No outsider can touch the runes. He should be cast out, not honored." The elder struck the ground with his staff, silencing him. "Do not speak against the fire. The runes do not lie. They have burned for him, and that is the truth before us." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. He had not asked for this. He had not wanted to stir their traditions or challenge their beliefs. All he had wanted was to stand with dignity, to show he would not be broken. Yet the fire had turned his act of survival into a message greater than himself. Myra stepped closer, holding the blade out for all to see. "When the runes first flared, I thought it a mistake. So I struck again, harder, to test it. But the fire only grew brighter. You all saw it? The blade itself has accepted him. Deny it if you wish, but the truth shines before your eyes." The crowd stirred again. Even those who doubted could not deny what they had witnessed. The blue fire was no illusion. It had answered again and again, each time Daniel's blood touched the steel. The elder turned to Daniel. "Do you understand what this means, human?" Daniel shook his head slowly. "I don't know your traditions. I don't know what the fire is meant to choose. I only know I came here to earn your respect, not to take anything from you." The elder studied him for a long moment. His lined face softened, and he gave a slow nod. "Perhaps that is why the fire chose you. Power does not seek the humble, yet the ancestors place it in their hands." The words carried weight. The clan fell silent, listening. The elder rarely spoke of the ancestors so directly, yet now he did so without hesitation. Myra sheathed the glowing blade, though the fire still bled faintly through the scabbard. She stood beside Daniel, no longer his rival but his equal. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "The duel is finished. By tradition, he has earned the right to be heard. But the fire gives him more than that. It gives him a place among us." The Veruan shifted uneasily. For generations, they had bowed to the judgment of the runes. Even the strongest warriors could not argue against the fire's will. Slowly, one by one, heads began to lower. First the elders, then the champions, then the younger fighters. The clan bowed, not to Myra, not even to the elder, but to Daniel. Daniel's chest tightened. He did not want their bow, nor their surrender. He raised his hand quickly. "Stop. Please. I don't want to be your master. I don't want to rule. I just wanted to stand here as your equal." But the clan remained bowed. Their voices rose together, chanting in their deep, rolling tongue. Though Daniel could not understand the words, he knew their meaning. They were giving him honor, perhaps more than he could bear. The elder placed his staff before Daniel's feet. "You may not seek it, human, but destiny has found you. The fire has chosen. The clan obeys." Myra looked at him with unreadable eyes. She saw the conflict in his face, the way he wrestled with what had been placed upon him. Her voice was quiet, meant for him alone. "Whether you accept it or not, you are part of us now. The fire does not choose by mistake." Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, drawing a long breath. He had not come to this world to lead, but something greater than choice was at work. When he opened his eyes again, he stood taller, his voice steady. Then I will not turn away. If the fire has chosen me, I will honor it. But I will walk beside you, not above you. Myra gave a single nod, and the elder's face broke into the faintest smile. Around them, the chanting grew louder, rising like thunder through the canyon. The Veruan clan had witnessed a miracle, and in their eyes, Daniel was no longer just a human. He was a sign of change. And so the runes had spoken, and the judgment of the ancestors had begun to shape a new future. The chanting of the Veruan faded into a heavy silence. The duel was over, but its echo remained in every heart. Daniel stood in the center of the circle, blood drying on his arm and side, his breath steadying as he looked at the kneeling clan. He had survived the test, but what followed was larger than survival. The fire of the runes had spoken. No one could deny it. Myra rose slowly to her feet, the rune blade still glowing faintly at her hip. She studied Daniel not as an enemy, not as a rival, but as someone who had crossed into the realm of the impossible. Her people had lived by the will of the ancestors for countless generations, and the blade was the clearest voice of that will. The fire's choice was clear. She stepped forward and extended her hand. "Stand with me," she said, her tone strong and commanding, yet carrying respect. Daniel hesitated. He had seen her strength, her skill, and the loyalty she commanded from her people. Now she offered not a strike, but a hand. Slowly, he reached out and clasped it. Their hands locked firmly, warrior to warrior, not master to servant. The elder nodded, his staff tapping against the stone. "The duel is decided. The fire has bound us. Today marks the beginning of a new path." A murmur ran through the gathered warriors. Some looked uneasy, others hopeful. Among them, one young warrior spoke in a low but tense voice, "If the fire accepts the human, then he is more than an outsider. He is part of us now." The words carried through the crowd. The clan shifted, trying to grasp the truth of what had happened. The weight of tradition pressed on them. The runes had never lied, never chosen falsely. Even those who resisted could not ignore the blazing light they had witnessed. Daniel looked around at the bowed heads, then at Myra still holding his hand. He released her grip and raised his voice. "I did not come here to rule you. I do not seek power or command. I only wanted to show I respected your ways and your strength. If your fire has chosen me, then let it not be for dominance, but for unity." The Veruan stirred at his words. They expected a conqueror to boast, a chosen one to claim glory. Instead, Daniel offered partnership. His humility struck them more deeply than any show of might could have. Myra turned to her people, her voice clear. "You have seen his strength. You have seen his blood awaken the runes. And now you hear his words. He does not stand above us, but beside us. That is why the fire burns for him." The elder raised his staff again. "The fire has never been wrong. The ancestors speak through it, and today they speak for change. The human will not be our enemy. He will be our ally. Together with Myra, he will carry the fire's will." The clan began to bow once more, this time not in fear, but in recognition. Their chants rose again, but now the tone was different. It was not the roar of warriors demanding victory. It was the song of a people accepting a new beginning. Daniel lowered his sword and finally sheathed it. His body still ached, yet the warmth from the runes lingered. It was as though he carried part of their fire inside him now. He did not know where this path would lead, but he knew he could not turn from it. Myra stood beside him, her presence firm and unshaken. She whispered low enough for him to hear. You showed mercy when you could have struck me down. That is not weakness. Among my people, that is true strength. Daniel glanced at her, meeting her sharp eyes. I didn't want to defeat you. I only wanted you to see me as I am. She nodded slowly. And now the clan sees you as more than that. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching across the canyon. The duel had ended, but a new weight pressed down on Daniel's shoulders. The Veruan had accepted him, yet their acceptance carried expectation. They would look to him now, not just as a guest, but as one chosen by the fire of their ancestors. The elder announced the end of the gathering, his voice ringing with authority. Tonight, we feast. Tonight, we honor both warriors. And tomorrow, we prepare for what the fire demands. The crowd began to disperse, but their eyes lingered on Daniel as they went. Some with curiosity, some with respect, others with unease. He could feel the burden of every gaze, yet Myra's steady presence beside him gave him balance. When the circle was nearly empty, Myra spoke again. You changed something today. The fire does not choose lightly. The clan will follow, but others beyond this valley may not accept it so easily. Be ready, Daniel. This is only the beginning. He looked at the horizon, where the suns painted the sky in streaks of red and gold. The desert wind carried the distant cry of beasts, a reminder that this was a harsh world. Yet for the first time, he did not feel like a stranger upon it. The runes had bound him to this land, to its people, and to their fate. He nodded, his voice firm. Then I'll walk this path with you. And so, the duel that was meant to humble a human had instead reshaped the destiny of an entire clan. The turning point had come, and the fire of the ancestors had chosen its bearer. Night came swiftly to the canyon, the twin suns sinking below the horizon until only the glow of the fires lit the Veruan camp. The smell of roasted meat drifted through the air, and drums echoed with slow, steady rhythms. The feast had begun, yet the mood of the clan was not simple celebration. It was heavy with questions, filled with whispers about the duel and the fire that had chosen a human. Daniel sat near the great fire, his cuts bandaged by the healers. They worked in silence, though their eyes lingered on him with a mix of wonder and unease. He could feel the weight of the entire clan's gaze as they gathered in a wide circle, speaking in low tones. He was no longer just a guest, and that made every glance sharper, every word heavier. Myra sat across from him, her posture calm, her head high. Though she had been the one to fight him, there was no bitterness in her eyes. Instead, there was something like pride. When she looked at him, it was as if she had seen not defeat, but truth. The elder rose, leaning on his staff, and the drums fell silent. His voice carried across the gathering. We honor tonight the duel that has changed us. Our champion fought with skill, and the outsider fought with heart. The fire of the ancestors has spoken, and we must not turn away from what we have seen. The Veruan listened closely. Some nodded in agreement, but others shifted uneasily, their expressions hard. One of the older warriors stood, his voice firm. Elder, the fire may have burned for him, but how can we give honor to one not of our blood? To follow a human is to abandon the pride of the Veruan. Murmurs of agreement followed, and Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had not asked to lead them, yet here they debated his place as if the entire clan's honor rested on it. He looked to Myra, but she stayed silent, letting the elder respond. The elder struck the ground with his staff. We do not abandon pride. We obey the fire. The blade has chosen, and its choice is law. The ancestors do not make mistakes. The older warrior did not sit. His eyes burned with anger. Then let him prove it again. Let him face another test, not just one duel. If the fire truly favors him, it will not fail him twice. A rumble of agreement rolled through the crowd. Daniel clenched his fists. He did not fear another test, but he felt the danger in their tone. This was not only about him. It was about their belief in their own traditions. Myra finally rose, her voice cutting through the noise. You all saw the fire blaze brighter when my blade cut him a second time. How many tests will satisfy you? The fire already gave its judgment. To doubt it now is to doubt the ancestors themselves. Her words struck hard, and many warriors lowered their heads. Still, the older warrior hesitated before slowly sitting back down, his jaw tight with frustration. The elder raised his hand. There will be no more duels tonight. The fire has spoken, and we must learn what it means. We will not waste this gift with endless doubt. The clan fell quiet again, and the feast resumed. Meat was passed, cups of strong drink were shared, and the drums began once more. Yet the unease did not vanish. Daniel could feel it in the way some looked at him, as if trying to decide whether to fear him, respect him, or reject him. After some time, Myra moved to sit beside him. She offered him a cup of the clan's drink. He took it, grateful for the simple gesture. For a moment, they sat in silence, watching the flames rise into the night sky. Finally, she spoke. You need to understand what this means. The Veruan are not a single clan. We are many, spread across the deserts and mountains. Word of this will travel. Some will see it as a blessing. Others will see it as a threat. Daniel nodded slowly. And what about your clan? Will they accept me? Myra's gaze moved across the circle of warriors. Some laughed and ate as though nothing had changed. Others watched Daniel with hard eyes. Some already do. Others will take time. The Veruan do not forget quickly. But you gave them more than strength today. You gave them humility, and that is something they are not used to seeing. Daniel tilted his head. Humility. She met his eyes. You could have struck me when I lowered my guard. You could have claimed victory when the fire burned. But you didn't. You chose respect instead. That choice will speak louder than the blade. He thought about her words and found them true. He had not wanted to dominate her, only to prove himself. Yet the fire had turned that simple intent into something far greater. Across the fire, the elder's gaze rested on them. His eyes were tired, but his voice was strong when he spoke again. Tomorrow, we will call the council. The clans must hear of this. And when they do, Daniel must stand not as a stranger, but as one chosen by the fire. Until then, he remains under our protection. The clan murmured, some nodding in agreement, others still uneasy. But none spoke against the elder now. His word was final. Daniel looked into the flames, the warmth flickering against his face. He felt the weight of what lay ahead. He had stepped into this world as a visitor, but now he was bound to it by fire and destiny. Whatever path came next, he could not walk away. Beside him, Myra placed a hand on the hilt of her glowing blade. Rest tonight, Daniel. Tomorrow, the real battle begins. Not with swords, but with hearts and voices. He breathed deeply, letting her words settle in his mind. The duel had been only the beginning. The true challenge was yet to come. The fire of the runes still glowed across the stone floor. The duel was finished, but the memory of it burned bright in the hearts of every Veruan warrior present. The impossible had happened, and no one dared to move until the elder had spoken. Now, silence hung over the clan's hall, broken only by the faint hum of the blade still resting in Myra's hands. Daniel stood a few steps away, breathing heavily, his arm wrapped in a strip of cloth where the blade had cut him. He looked from Myra to the glowing sword and then to the kneeling clan. He did not understand their ways, but he could feel the weight of what had taken place. He had come to prove himself, nothing more. He had not expected to be the center of a moment that would change a people's future. Myra slowly rose to her feet. Her tall frame seemed smaller now, as if the duel had humbled her as much as it had tested Daniel. She turned the blade sideways and stepped toward him, her eyes steady. Holding the sword in both hands, she lifted it toward him. "This does not belong to me anymore," she said in a quiet but firm voice. "The runes have chosen. It answers you, not me." Daniel blinked, unsure how to respond. He shook his head slightly. "I do not want to take your weapon. It is yours, not mine." Myra shook her head once more, her expression unyielding. "No, human. This blade was never truly mine. I carried it, but it did not burn for me. You bled, and it answered. That means it has judged you. By our law, it is now your burden, whether you wish for it or not." The crowd murmured, their voices a mix of awe and unease. The elder stepped forward again, nodding slowly. "She speaks the truth. To refuse is to insult the runes themselves." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. He had not asked for any of this. He had fought with respect, never to conquer, and now these people wanted to place a symbol of leadership into his hands. His instincts told him to step back, but something in the faces before him stopped him. They were not looking at him as an outsider anymore. They were looking at him with hope. He reached out slowly, his hand brushing the side of the sword. The runes pulsed once, sending a faint warmth through his fingers. The glow spread outward like ripples in water, dancing across the floor again. Every Veruan warrior bowed their head lower at the sight. Daniel swallowed hard. "If I take this, I cannot stand above you as a ruler. I am not one of you. But I can walk beside you. I can stand with you." Myra's eyes widened at his words. Most warriors would have seized the moment to claim authority. Instead, he spoke of standing equal, not higher. She felt her chest tighten with respect. She lowered herself to one knee, bowing her head, but not as a servant. It was a gesture of loyalty between equals. Others followed. One by one, the clan members bent forward, not in fear, but in acceptance. Daniel, overwhelmed, lifted the blade overhead for a moment, then lowered it carefully back into Myra's hands. She looked at him in surprise. "You carry it still," he said softly. "I may have awakened it, but you are its warrior. I will not take that from you. I will walk beside you, not take your place." The hall filled with gasps again, but this time they were not shocked, only moved. Myra tightened her grip on the weapon, and for the first time she felt the warmth of the runes flow into her through his gift. She nodded once, deeply. Then together, she said. The elder raised his voice. "Then so it shall be. From this day, the fire of the ancestors binds human and Veruan as one." The chant of the clan rose around them. Names echoed off the stone walls. The sound shook the hall, not as a cry of war but as a song of unity. Daniel felt his chest tighten with an emotion he could not name. For the first time since stepping onto this alien world, he no longer felt like a stranger. As the night wore on, the clan gathered around fires, sharing food and stories. Children pointed at Daniel with wide eyes, whispering about the human who carried the fire of the ancestors. Warriors clapped him on the back, and though he still felt awkward, he could see their respect was genuine. Myra sat beside him at the largest fire, her sword across her lap. She studied him in the glow of the flames. You did not want their power, yet they gave it anyway. That is why the runes chose you. They do not answer to pride. They answer to spirit. Daniel smiled faintly. I only wanted to show I respected you all. I guess the runes thought respect was enough. She nodded, her eyes narrowing thoughtfully. Perhaps respect is stronger than conquest. The firelight flickered across their faces. Around them, the clan sang, voices rising like the wind across the desert. Daniel listened, not knowing the words, but understanding the meaning. A bond had been forged this day. Not a chain, but a bridge. The stars stretched wide across the night sky, brighter than Daniel had ever seen. The desert winds carried the sound of the clan's songs into the distance, and the fires burned low as the warriors settled into rest. Yet Daniel could not sleep. He sat at the edge of the gathering, watching the flames flicker while thoughts circled in his mind. The blade's runes still glowed faintly in Myra's hands. She had kept it near her as if it was part of her body. Daniel glanced at her, sitting tall beside the fire, her eyes fixed on the horizon. She was not resting either. When she noticed his look, she turned her head slightly. You are uneasy, she said. Daniel nodded. Everything changed today. I did not come here to lead anyone. I came only to survive. But now it feels like I carry more than myself. Myra leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. The firelight touched her sharp features, softening them. That is the way of our people. A duel is never just a test of strength. It is a test of spirit. When the runes flare, the duel becomes a path. You did not choose it, but it chose you. Daniel let out a slow breath. And what if I am not enough? She studied him for a long moment before answering. You bled, and yet you stood tall. You respected us, even when victory was within your hand. That is enough. A leader who does not want power is the one most worthy to carry it. Her words struck him deeply. He looked again at the stars. Back on Earth, leaders were chosen by votes or crowns, but here, destiny was decided by glowing runes carved into steel. It was strange, yet somehow it made sense. The sound of approaching footsteps broke the quiet. The elder appeared, leaning on his staff. His voice carried the weight of years. The council of the clans has heard what happened this day. Word travels fast across the desert. By dawn, others will come. They will want to see the human who carries the fire. Daniel's chest tightened. He had faced battles before, but never this kind of attention. And if they do not accept me? The elder's eyes glimmered. Then they will test you, as all do. But you will not face them alone. Myra nodded firmly. You will stand with me. The runes burn for you, but they flow through us together. Let them test us both. Daniel felt a strange calm settle over him at her words. For the first time, he did not feel like he had to face this world by himself. The elder tapped his staff against the ground. Remember this, human. Power is not in the blade alone. It is in the promise you carry. You stand at the start of a new path. Do not walk it with fear. Walk it with truth. When the elder left, Myra turned to Daniel once more. Tell me something. On your world, do your people kneel to fire and steel as we do? Daniel thought for a moment. Not in the same way. On Earth, people follow ideas. Justice, freedom, respect. Sometimes those ideas are carried by leaders, sometimes by books or flags. But not by weapons. At least, not when we are wise. Myra tilted her head, curiosity in her eyes. Then perhaps that is why the runes answered you. They wanted something we had forgotten. The night grew quieter, the songs fading as the clan drifted to sleep. Daniel stayed awake until the horizon began to glow with the first light of dawn. The desert stretched endless before him, golden under the rising sun. He felt small before its vastness, yet not powerless. By morning, riders arrived from distant clans. Their beasts thundered across the sand, and their banners whipped in the wind. They carried long spears and painted armor, and their eyes were sharp with suspicion. They halted before the camp, demanding to see the one who had awakened the runes. Daniel stepped forward. Myra walked at his side, her sword resting on her shoulder, its runes glowing faintly in the sunlight. The gathered warriors whispered among themselves at the sight of the human. One rider dismounted, his voice strong and challenging. Is this the outsider who dares to claim the fire of our ancestors? Daniel raised his voice so all could hear. I do not claim it for myself. I do not seek to rule your clans. I only seek to stand with you. The fire chose me, but I give it back to you, through her. He gestured toward Myra. Together, we can carry it. Together, not apart. There was silence. The distant clans had expected pride or arrogance. Instead, they heard humility. Myra lifted the blade, and the runes flared brighter than before, as if answering his words. The riders gasped, their expressions shifting from doubt to awe. The eldest of the new arrivals dismounted slowly, kneeling in the sand. Then the fire has not given us a ruler. It has given us a bridge. Let it be so. Others followed his example, kneeling with heads bowed. The desert winds swept across them, carrying away the last shadow of doubt. Daniel felt the weight of the moment settle on him. He was not a conqueror, not a ruler, but something different. A bond between two worlds. He turned his gaze toward Myra, and she gave a sharp nod, her eyes filled with pride. The clan rose together, voices lifting in a single cry that shook the desert. It was not a cry of war, but of unity. Daniel stood among them, the fire of the runes burning around him, and made his promise. I will not fail you. I will walk with you, and no force will break this bond. From this day, human and Veruan stand as one. The desert carried his words far, and for the first time in history, the Veruan clans and a human shared the same path.